In today's video, I'm going to challenge myself to create an enchanting fairy village out of purely natural products. It's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time now because I just love the idea of bringing a little bit of magic into the world around us. Like today, quick side note, I wasn't planning to come out and it be snowing. It's blue skies where I've come from. Granted, snow on the ground, but yeah, was not planning for this. I've been inspired by so many talented makers out there that have created wonderful different fairy villages and fairy houses, but a lot of the time they're using things mainly like glues and different maybe types of plastic or other things that can't just be left in the area where you put the fairy house outside and just left to rot down because it would be damaging to the area that it's within. So I like the idea of making something out of materials that have just come from that area that you end up putting it. Two reasons. Firstly, I don't really have the money to buy all the glues and potentially bits and pieces that are needed to make this, so I'm going to be making it pretty much for free, other than the tools that I've got already. And secondly, I'm too lazy and I don't want to have to go back and take it all apart again. So I just want to leave it there. Another little mini challenge that I've given myself is that Alicia's away with Echo for a couple of weeks looking after her mum and dad's dogs. So I've got 2 weeks to hopefully get all of this project in. But before I start making, I'm going to need to find the right spot for my fairy village.
A tiny little drone like this. Low to the floor.
I'll be searching in a range of different places near to where I live in mid-Wales, including mountaintop vast open areas, conifer forests, as well as a Victorian community woodland, and a lot of things in between. Overall, I'm looking for a spot that has something special, something that you can't quite put your finger on, but it's like stepping into another world. The specific type of things that I'm going to be looking for are things like holes for doors and windows to be fitted into. This could be cavities within a tree, holes within the ground, or even overhanging growth. Fallen or dead trees that have the aesthetic that I'm after, but it's not so rotten that it will fall apart when I add anything to it. Maybe even historic man-made sites that could add some depth to the pretend world that these fairies live within, as if it's remnants of a past civilization. Then lastly, ideally not too far away from somewhere I can park, as I'll have to carry the camera, tools, and some materials to the site that I'm going to put the village together. Also, it's got to be fairly easy to reach because I'm not the most athletic, so yeah, next to the path is a good reason. But also, next to the path, like where I am here now, people walk on this route, so therefore I want people to find it. I like the idea of hiding it to a degree and it becoming a bit of a thing that people have to look for, and when they find it, it's that much more like, oh wow, look what I found. However, I don't want to literally like head and into the woodland and hide it within the woodland for this project. I came really close to picking one of these overhanging sections because they remind me so much of a very particular film. You may have seen it before, but the reason that I haven't gone for something like this is because this is my first attempt at a fairy house, and the classic fairy house is in a hole in a tree. So therefore I might leave this sort of style for a future project or see if it can be incorporated into the site that I'm going to find for today's video. I think I found it. So why did I pick this spot? Because of all the different holes, basically. This one caught my eye and it actually goes all the way through, but there's lots of different holes. There's some that are hidden up here, there's one there, and there's lots of different places that I feel like could be fairy houses within themselves. Originally, this was going to be just a fairy house video because I've never had a go at making one before, and like always, it instantly became something much bigger because I saw this and was like, this is a village. There's lots of different holes, lots of different homes all over the place. And then I found this, not 50 yards up the path, this beautiful piece of rotted and therefore having things lichen and moss growing all over it, piece of route. And yeah, I just thought that's a perfect spot for it there, and a perfect little hole for then a door to go, because it's maybe the boss's house. I also checked to make sure that there wasn't necessarily anything living in here. There's probably insects and things, but thinking ahead, I'm not trying to take a squirrel's home, for example. With that now picked, we're moving on to part 2, my favorite bit. If you've watched other crafting videos on this channel, you may have seen I've been collecting a bunch of various natural craft materials over the last year or so. The reason that this is my favorite part is because although I haven't a list of stuff to get specifically for this project, it's where I can let the woodland inspire me, and more often than not, things that I find help guide the project in a way that I hadn't necessarily planned. So at this stage, overall, I'm just looking for a load of different shapes, textures, colors, and just anything that catches my eye. As I'm trying my best not to damage the landscape too much, I don't think there's really any wrong answers. A lot of the time I'm going for things that have fallen down or are near a path or something like that. If at any stage I'm wary of something, for example, if I think that it might be poisonous to touch, then I take a picture, go home, do a bit of research, and then come back and collect it once I'm more secure on I know what that is. Otherwise, the types of things that I'm looking for are things like long straight sticks for splitting to make small planks, building blocks or materials to make walls, flat things that could act as a tile or a roof covering of some kind, wooden sticks of varying shapes and sizes, twisting, gnarly, thin pieces for weaving. This could be roots that have been pulled up by a fallen tree, harvested spruce roots from the ground, or hanging plants like honeysuckle. Also varied fibres for cordage, leaves maybe for window covering or other accent pieces, and also large pieces that could almost become buildings in their own right, just like this piece here. I'll take these home and save these for later. Now for the most challenging part. I've got to try and figure out a way to connect things together without using stuff like tape, glue, metal nails, and anything that can't be left outside. Now, my plan, actually, first of all, doesn't this look kind of cool? I've tried to make it look pretty, and yes, that's jumpers over a monitor because I recently had to replace that monitor and I don't want to replace it again, and inevitably, well, I'm also too lazy to move it and I don't want to accidentally ping off something and ruin a new monitor. Anyway, my plan now, having collected all of these different materials, is to do a bunch of tests, basically to see if I can stick a bunch of things to other things. Yes, that's the technical term for that. But luckily, I have got a few ideas. First up, rope or natural cordage being used to tie things together. You may have seen that I've done a whole bunch of different cordage videos on this channel, so I've got a range of different cordage that I can use. I'm going to try and still use things that are local. So for example, here I've got some wool that's just literally, I found it just in bushes from the sheep that are surrounding us, because I live in Wales, and yes, every single field has sheep in it, but it could be loads of different things. Types of things I could do would be, an obvious one is a rope ladder or a bridge, but I could maybe even use this method to do walls, even doors, balconies, almost anything really. Wooden pins, like with a lot of these, it doesn't have to be really exact, so as long as it stays together, that's okay. But my plan for this is I've got some blackthorn thorns, which are really, you definitely don't, they're poisonous I think actually, if you do get stabbed by them, so you've got to be really careful, but they're really long and strong. I've noticed that the second year thorn is a stronger wood than the first year, but the first year generally doesn't have any of the stuff on the side, so yeah, if you were going to do this, up to you. Using wooden pins, I could make a whole host of different things. Again, this one's quite a staple for being able to then put a lot of things together. Next up, tension joins. This is something that I learned recently at a green woodworking course when I made the larger hurdle. And I'm basically going to use the exact same method. So it's where you create a hole and then the piece that you're putting in that hole, you kind of cut the end of the plank to fit the hole, if that makes sense. I'll use these joins for things like hurdles, a gate, but overall I think this is more of like creating the frame and the structure that's the sort of stronger support of a certain part of the building. Weaving. Now again, you may have seen I've done a whole load of different weaving projects on this channel, most of them being random weave. So I'm quite confident that I can do this. So this was one of the first things I tried out. Firstly, making a hurdle, which is very simple, using a former, putting the uprights into a piece of wood and then just going back and forward, making sure that it all sticks together. And there you are, nice rustic looking garden fence. Next up could be things like a pergola or an archway, and I'm thinking that's where I'm going to use some of these random weave techniques by using things that are pliable. In this sense, it could be thin pieces of willow, spruce root, I mean obviously cordage, you could do it with that as well. There's honeysuckle. If it's twisty enough that it goes around your finger or goes around your wrist, then it's twisty enough to weave with. And you can make anything out of it really. There's so much that can be done with weaving, it just depends on your imagination. Lastly, there are a couple of ones that I haven't tried at all. First up, let me get it, is some clay. And I say clay, you could make clay. I've watched some videos about how to make your own clay, but if you go to an area like I did that has quite clayey soil, and my plan with the clay is to basically make a wall. I'm planning that I'll be able to use slate, but you could potentially use like pebbles, rocks, anything like that, to then use it as the mortar for a garden wall or a wall for a house. And then the other natural glue alternative that I will be doing is glue from trees around us. There's loads of coniferous trees around us, and specifically Douglas fir. It looks lovely when you go up to it and press the thing. Oh, look at that, yeah. And alongside a whole bunch of stuff that I collected that's from spruce trees. So when they've been damaged, they kind of send out the sap, and then the sap dries so it becomes almost like a gum. And hopefully both of these gluing methods will be ways of sticking things together like you normally would with making a lot of the fairy houses. Things like walls, doors, tables, chairs, or even to help the nails or the tenons stick in place. Well, it's stuck. Although not very well. Also, quick extra, to make these here, these planks, the idea is that hopefully I can then cut these to size, and these can then be used to make, well, all kind of manner of things. I used a range of different carving techniques to do this. Again, like with a lot of the different skills, because I'm doing so many different things in this video, it's not going to be a tutorial exactly for how I did every single bit. If you're interested with this one or any of the other skills that I do in this video, of me delving deeper into a specific skill, for example, carving techniques on how to make these planks, let me know in the comments below. So that's the plan. As of recording this now, I haven't actually done it, but you will have just seen it in a kind of, hopefully a really cool montage. If there's anything that I haven't mentioned that you think would really work as a way of sticking things together for projects like this fairy project, please comment down below, because most of these is my first attempt. So I want to learn just as much as hopefully you guys are learning from this video. I want to learn from yourselves. So yeah, please comment down below if you can help me out. Otherwise, I haven't actually done any of it yet, so I probably should get started. You've just seen it, because you would have seen it in the montage, but I should probably actually do it now. Before I get started with this step of the process, I'm going to tell you that I fucked up. I didn't exactly fuck up, like being positive, I didn't fuck up. What I did was do something that I'm quite bad for doing a lot of the time, which is just getting carried away, and instead of focusing on the thing that I'm doing, which is making a fairy village for this particular site, I just ended up going and doing a thing and getting carried away and doing something that was not really relevant, and yeah, spending a load of time doing something that isn't actually even the thing that I set out to do in the first place. Granted, they're two things that I'm really happy with how they came out. So they were part of the tests, and then I just continued doing it, which is why I then just continued, and it ended up just being an extra that, oh, maybe I'll use it, and yeah, I didn't. One of those is this. Absolutely love it. Really happy with how this came out. The main one though is this. So you've seen that I created these little fence posts, which the length of these are just because of the block of wood that I happen to have to drill the holes in to make them this length. What I ended up doing was making a whole load more. Alongside, if you've seen the green woodworking video that I did, I made a hurdle very similar to this. And originally I thought alongside those fence posts, it could maybe be either like a sheep enclosure or maybe even like a market garden or like a little allotment space. After laying it out on the floor, I sat back for a second and was like, actually, where's this gonna go? Therefore, I have paused that and I had another idea actually with these. I was like, well, it's kind of like a cottage garden. So let's not force these into this project. And what I will do is for a future project, these alongside a material that I'll get to in a bit, I think that'll work really well. Other than that though, the main thing that I learned is make things smaller and try. I do find this difficult, but try and plan a little bit beforehand. Now, I decided against putting the evaluation in this video. I felt like it just went too much into detail and wasn't really about making a fairy village. I've also got some news. I'm going to be releasing a Patreon alongside the release of this video, and that test video, that evaluation, will be one of the first videos for members. So if you're interested in learning about what I'm going to do on the Patreon and the things that are going to be created for members, as well as if you want to just support us and support me to make more videos like this one, then please visit the link down below or the one up above. But how about for now, I'll give you a cool montage of the final build of putting everything together. You ready? Let's go. I love it. I've enjoyed so much of making this project. I've used most of the techniques that I tested out earlier on, other than the glue. That was one that I didn't really use because it didn't really work. It's something I'm going to try out in future. But there's weaving in the fences, in the pergola, in the bird's nest. There's other types of tying method in the stairs and the ladders and some of the things that are held in place. That's how the structure underneath is held in place. Although I didn't use the kind of clay mud method to make a wall itself, a lot of this stuff is held in place with clay from around here, and that's what's holding a lot of things in place. Also, the equivalent of like a wooden dowel for a lot of the furniture, for the stairs here, and for a lot of the just general bits and pieces, ways of holding a stick to a thing. That's how a lot of the time it's been used. And then there's an extra bonus that I did, inspired by two different people. Firstly, the channel Much Props. As it turned out, while I was making a lot of these, he actually released a fairy trinket video. So I thought, oh, that's a great idea. I love the idea of making something that someone can take. And that's where I've added some of these little extra bits, like the axe block here, the table with the little display, or some of the other benches and things. If someone passes, I don't mind if they take that. That's a little trinket that they can take home. Also, a finishing touch here with some of these dried flowers, and that was from Ruth from Beltane Blooms. If you've not seen the video with Ruth, she did a tutorial of how to make a wreath from dried flowers. And after that project, she gave us not only some of the dried flowers that she had left over, but she made these tiny little bouquets to act as sort of an accent next to, I knew I wanted to add something next to a doorway or something like that. So I've added these here, love it. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put the link up above. Otherwise, what do you think? What's your favorite bit? What's your favorite part of it? Please comment down below. Also like and share this with anyone that you think might like these fairy kind of themed videos, because I'd love to do some more of these. Maybe even If there's something that I haven't delved into specific detail, for example, how I made the bird's nest or how I made parts of these sections, if you'd like me to make a video specifically about one of these sections, please comment down below and tell me which bit. Otherwise, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you, and enjoy the village.